In Africa, some leaders have been in power for as many as over 4 decades. Sub-Saharan Africa is home to many of the world's longest ruling heads of state and political leaders. Some post-colonial leaders in the 1960s and 70s sought to become what we would call president for life. However, many of these presidents oversee political campaigns and elections marred by brutalities and arrest of opponents. Many African countries struggled with transfers of power in the first half-century after independence. Leaders who gained recognition during national movements for independence consolidated power and bound their own positions in office with their country's national identities. In some years past, some of these presidents have been booted out of office, but a few remain. In this list, we have not included leaders who are no longer in power, but they deserve honorable mentions. Leaders like the late Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia holds the record for the longest time in power on the African continent. After reigning for 44 years, he was ousted in 1974. Another honorable mention is Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, who ruled with an iron fist for nearly 42 years, was killed in 2011 after an armed rebellion. Omar Bongo governed oil-rich Gabon for more than 41 years until his death from cancer in 2009. Angola's Eduardo dos Santos stepped down in September 2017, having led his oil-rich country for 38 years. Zimbabwe's former president Robert Mugabe, who died in 2019, was in power for 37 years. Military coups were once common as means to seize power. They have declined during the last 2 decades. There were 27 successful coups d'etats from 1970 to 1982, but only 12 from 2000 to 2012. Opponents of many of these long-serving leaders are either brutalized or subjected to inhuman treatments to get them to give up contesting. So, here's a list of the longest-serving African leaders. At number 1, Teodoro Obiang Nguema, Equatorial Guinea, 43 years in power. Teodoro Obiang, born June 1942, has been the second president of Equatorial Guinea since 1979 and is the longest consecutively serving non-royal national leader in the world. Teodoro Obiang came into power after he ousted his uncle Francisco Nguema in an August 1979 military coup. While opposition parties were legalized in 1992, Obiang's Democratic Party of Equatorial Guinea dominated. He has won over 90% of votes at every election, some of which the opposition boycotted. The Constitution of Equatorial Guinea provides Obiang sweeping powers, including the right to rule by decree, effectively making his government a legal dictatorship. Teodoro Obiang Nguema is currently the world's longest-serving president, and he has been in office for 43 years. Number 2, Paul Biya of Cameroon, 41 years in power. Cameroonian President Paul Biya is the second longest-serving leader in Africa since 1982 and the oldest head of state in Africa. Biya, now 89 years old, took over in 1982 from President Amadou Ahidjo after serving as Prime Minister for 7 years. He succeeded Ahidjo as president upon the latter's surprise resignation in 1982 and consolidated power in a 1983-1984 staged attempted coup d'etat. By the end of Paul Biya's first year in office, he had reverted to his predecessor's tactics, a practice which intensified after the attempted coup in 1984. Biya has won 5 multi-party elections since 1992, and in 2018, he was re-elected for another 7-year tenure. At number 3, Denis Sassou Nguesso, Congo Republic. Denis Nguesso assumed office in 1979 before losing the country's first multi-party elections in 1992. He regained power in 1997 after a civil war. During his first period as president, he headed the single-party regime of the Congolese Party of Labour for 12 years. Under pressure from international sources, he introduced multi-party politics in 1990 and was then stripped of executive powers, remaining in office as a ceremonial head of state. The introduction of a new constitution, passed by referendum in 2015, enabled Sassou Nguesso to stand for another term. He was re-elected in the 2016 presidential elections with a majority in the first round. On March 2021, the Republic of Congo held elections in which relatively few citizens participated, allowing Denis to rule for another 5 years. President Sassou Nguesso spent 38 years in office so far. At number 4, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Uganda, 37 years. Uganda's President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been in power since 1986 after he won the war that ousted dictator Idi Amin Dada. Museveni, now 78 years of age, became president when his forces seized the capital Kampala after a 5-year guerrilla struggle. Museveni has won 5 elections since 1996. The Ugandan president has twice changed the constitution to allow him to run, first removing a 2-term limit in 2005 and then abolishing the age limit of 75 in 2017. Museveni has benefited from 2 constitutional amendments that were made at a time when he was becoming ineligible to seek re-election by removing the constitutional limit to his candidature. He was elected for a 6th term in January 2021. At number 5, Eswatini, King Mswati III, 35 years. King Mswati III, born in April 1968, is the king of Eswatini and the head of the Swazi royal family. He was crowned as Mswati III as Eswatini King, formerly known as Swaziland, in 1986 at the age of 18, thus becoming the youngest ruling monarch in the world at the time. Mswati III was the son of King Souza II and to one of the king's younger wives. His mother jointly rules with him, first as Queen Regent and now as Queen Mother. Political parties have been banned in Eswatini, previously known as Swaziland, since 1973. In 2001, Mswati attempted to placate calls for democratic reforms by appointing a committee to draft a new constitution. The draft, finally released in 2003, allowed the king to retain absolute governing powers and banned opposition parties. It was widely criticized for its lack of democratic reforms. King Mswati III has served the largest monarch in the continent for 35 years. At number 6, Idriss Deby, former president of Chad, 30 years. While on this list we excluded presidents who are no longer in power, former Chadian president Idriss Deby deserves to be on this list. On April 2021, the long-term president died of wounds suffered in the front line in the country's north, where he had gone to visit soldiers battling rebels. This came after Deby won a 6th term in office after general elections. Chad's Idriss Deby has ruled for over 30 years. He took power at the head of a rebellion in 1990. Throughout his presidency, Deby repeatedly faced resistance in the form of coup attempts and rebel activities. He and his administration were beset with charges of corruption and were known for brutally repressing individual rights and freedoms, with Chadian security forces routinely committing serious human rights abuses. Idriss Deby promised to establish a multi-party democracy and the lawlessness and conflict that he had endured in Chad for so long. In actuality, this did not happen, although there was some illusion of progress. A national conference was held in 1993 to establish a transitional government, and Deby was officially designated interim president. In 1996, a new constitution was approved and Idriss Deby was elected president in the first multi-party presidential elections held in Chad's history. At number 7, Isaias Afwerki, Eritrea, 30 years of presidency. Isaias Afwerki, born February 1946, has ruled since Eritrea's independence from Ethiopia in 1993. He has so far governed for 30 years. Isaias remains the only president the country has known. There have never been national elections in Eritrea, which rights groups consider to be one of the most repressive states in the world. In the early years, he was hailed as a new type of African president. Then US President Bill Clinton referred to him as a Renaissance African leader. At an Organization of African Unity summit in Cairo in 1993, he blasted fellow heads of state for staying in power for too long and rejected a cult of personality. He led the Eritrea's People's Liberation Front (EPLF) to victory, ending the 30-year-old war for independence from Ethiopia. He has been in power since independence in 1993. He has so far governed for almost 31 years. At number 8, Ismail Omar Guelleh, Djibouti, for 23 years. President Ismail Omar was first elected as president in 1999 as the hand-picked successor to his uncle Hassan Guelleh, who had ruled Djibouti since independence in 1977. Guelleh's desire to remain in office was strengthened in 2010. He persuaded the National Assembly of Djibouti to amend the nation's constitution, allowing him to stand for a third term. Opposition parties boycotted the election, leaving one little-known candidate against him on the ballot. Guelleh won almost 80% of the vote and was also the winner of the 2017 elections with about 87% of the popular vote. In April 2021, Ismail Omar Guelleh was re-elected in office to what should be his last 5-year term. This is due to the fact that, as per the age limit set by the constitution, he will be over 75 years old by the next presidential election in 2026. At number 9, King Mohammed VI, Morocco, 23 years in power. Mohammed VI, born in 1963, ascended the thrones in July 1999 when his father, King Hassan II, died of a heart attack. The Moroccan royal family has reigned since 1631, making it the Muslims' world's oldest dynasty. After the death of his father, Muhammad took the thrones as Muhammad VI. The new king thus joined two other young rulers of the Arab world, King Abdullah II of Jordan and Sheikh Ahmed of Bahrain, who had both assumed power in 1999 upon the death of their fathers. When King Muhammad VI took the reins of government, he immediately faced a political milestone. Controversy raged in Morocco over government proposals to afford women broader access to public life, including greater access to education and more thorough representation within the government and civil service, and to provide them with more equity within the society, such as greater rights in marriage, inheritance, and divorce. In 2014, American business magazine Forbes rated him the richest king in Africa and the 5th richest king in the world. At number 10, Paul Kagame, Rwanda, 23 years. When Paul Kagame became Rwanda's president in 2000, he inherited a country that had been torn apart by genocide. Kagame, born in 1957, was widely seen as the de facto leader of Rwanda after his rebel army ended the 1994 genocide. He was elected president by parliament in 2000. The economic recovery of Rwanda after the 1994 genocide has gone into history books as a success story, and it's inextricably linked to Paul Kagame. While many Rwandans revere the president for the progress the country has made during his 20+ years in office, others criticize Kagame for suppressing dissenting views, and others call him a benevolent dictator. The constitution was changed in 2015 to let him seek a third 7-year term in 2017 and 2 more 5-year terms, meaning he could stay in power until 2034. Rwanda is known beyond its borders for its stringent and effective policies. In Western countries, Rwanda is mainly associated with free political projects, equality of women, promotion of new technologies, and environmental protection measures. In a constitutional referendum held in 2015, voters approved amendments to the constitution that would allow Kagame to serve a third 7-year term. Rwandans voted overwhelmingly and approved amendments to the constitution that would allow Kagame to stand again for office beyond the end of his second mandate, which ended in 2017. Kagame announced that he would indeed vie in the 2017 presidential elections and won the elections with nearly 99% of the vote. In theory, he could run twice again, keeping in power until 2034, although his current term ends in 2094. For so long, African leaders have claimed that active participation in liberating their homelands has been the basis for clinging to the tools of power. What do you think makes African leaders stay in power for way too long? Let us know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.